What if the scariest monsters in Resident Evil weren't the creatures themselves, but the experiments that created them? Resident Evil 9 introduces some of the most disturbing enemies that series has ever seen: failed clones, mutated patients, nightmarish bioweapons, and tragic victims who were transformed into monsters. Each one has a horrifying backstory tied to decades of illegal experimentation with the T-virus. Today, we're breaking down the disturbing lore behind the most terrifying enemies in Resident Evil 9. Before we begin, if you enjoy deep dives into the horror games and disturbing gaming lore, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment your favorite Resident Evil monster below. Now, let's start with one of the darkest experiments in the entire franchise. Long before the outbreak in Resident Evil 9, Umbrella's founder Oswald E. Spencer was obsessed with a terrifying idea. What if memories could be transferred from one person to another? To test this theory, Spencer began conducting illegal cloning experiments on children. The goal was simple in theory, but horrifying in practice: create genetic duplicates and attempt to transfer memories between them using experimental virus strains. These test subjects became known as Series 60, but the results were catastrophic. Instead of successfully transferring memories, the virus destroyed their minds. The children developed severe mental instability, violent behavior, and extreme cognitive damage. Eventually, the experiment spiraled out of control. The corrupted clones turned on the researchers and slaughtered everyone inside the lab. Their appearance reflected the torture they endured. Surgical stitches ran across their heads from repeated procedures. Dark veins spread across their skin, and their glowing red eyes revealed the virus slowly destroying their bodies. But the nightmare didn't end there. Years later, the criminal organization known as the Connections stole Spencer's research, and it would lead them to create something far worse. At the center of Resident Evil 9's events is one man, Victor Gideon. Victor was once a scientist working for Umbrella, but unlike many researchers, he truly believed in Spencer's vision of forced human evolution. After Umbrella collapsed in 2003, Victor continued the research in secret. He purchased a medical facility known as the Rhodeshill Chronic Care Center, turning it into a hidden laboratory. Patients with no family, no visitors, and no one looking for them became his test subjects. Deep beneath the hospital, Victor began experimental mutated strain of the T-virus. This variant produced a horrifying disease known as the Raccoon City Syndrome. Victims would vomit blood as black marks spread across their skin. Once the infection reached its final stage, death came within hours. But Victor wasn't looking for a cure. He was actually trying to weaponize it. And when Leon Kennedy began closing in on the truth, Victor triggered a final contingency. He infected the entire hospital. Doctors, staff, and patients all began turning into monsters. And within minutes, the care center became a living nightmare. Among the infected inside the hospital, a far worse mutation began appearing: the Blister Heads. Unlike normal zombies, these creatures form after death. When an infected corpse reanimates, the virus causes a grotesque tumor to grow on the host's head. As the mutation progresses, the skin splits open, exposing the infected brain underneath. rows of new teeth begin forming, and an elongated tongue lashes out at victims. Blister Heads are stronger and far more aggressive than ordinary zombies, but in rare cases, the mutation doesn't stop there. Sometimes the virus continues evolving. When this happens, the creature transforms into something far more dangerous, the Blister-born. Their bodies swell into massive deformed shapes covered in tumorous growths. These pulsating organs spread across their entire body, beating like grotesque hearts. But their most terrifying ability is their blood. Blister-born can vomit highly acidic, infected blood at their enemies, and if one of their tumors ruptures, it releases toxic fluid that can cause nearby infected to mutate even further. Because of their size and durability, these creatures act as powerful boss enemies throughout the game. But even they pale in comparison to the next monsters, because these weren't just infected, they were victims. Twins were once ordinary patients, two brothers named Thomas and Timothy. Both were being treated for severe eating disorders. Doctors attempt a radical surgical procedure, disabling the part of the brain responsible for feeling full. But the results were disastrous. The brothers developed an uncontrollable hunger. Thomas began eating anything he could find: medical equipment, plastic, metal. But Timothy's behavior became far more darker. He developed a craving for human flesh. Then the outbreak began. When Victor infected the hospital, both brothers were exposed to the mutated virus. Their already damaged bodies mutated into massive, grotesque monsters. Driven by endless hunger, they began devouring anyone they encountered inside the facility. One of them eventually confronts Leon directly in the brutal boss fight, but the other continues roaming the halls, hunting for its next meal. Not all the monsters in Resident Evil 9 were villains. Some were victims. Emily and Marie were clones created by the Connections in an attempt to replicate a girl named Grace Ashcroft. Grace was believed to be the key to unlocking a mysterious project called Elpis. The two clones were brought to the care center for experimentation. Emily eventually lost her eyesight during a failed procedure, and to help her cope with isolation, staff members taught her how to read Braille. Despite everything she endured, Emily remained calm and emotionless. But Mary's story took a far more darker turn. Scientists injected her with blood samples for over 100 infected individuals. At first, the experiment appeared successful. Mary developed abnormal strength. But the virus soon overwhelmed her body. She mutated into a towering creature with skeletal limbs and a mass of distorted jaw. Despite her transformation, fragments of her memories remained. When she encountered Emily again, she didn't kill her. Instead, she protected her. And in the end, Mary's story ends tragically when intense light exposure causes her mutated body to dissolve. But Emily survives, and later cured by an antiviral treatment and adopted by Grace. One of the few hopeful endings in the entire story. Of course, no Resident Evil game would be complete without a Tyrant. The Tyrant T501 is a new upgraded version of Umbrella's infamous bioweapon. Standing nearly 10 feet tall, the creature was designed to hunt and eliminate specific targets. To keep the mutation stable, Tyrants are equipped with a device called a power limiter. But if the limiter is destroyed, the creature undergoes a terrifying transformation. Its claw grows larger, its strength increases dramatically, and an exposed organ appears in its chest. A weak point, but also a sign the monster has reached its most dangerous form. And during the game, one of these tyrants relentlessly pursues Leon through the ruins of the Raccoon City Police Department. The chase eventually ends in an explosive final battle outside the building. One of the strangest enemies in Resident Evil 9 isn't human at all. It's a giant spider known as the Titan Spinner. The creature likely originated from Umbrella's earlier spider bioweapon experiments, but something caused it to mutate far beyond its original design. Inside the Arc Lab, massive webs cover entire warehouse sections, suggesting the creature escaped containment long ago. But the Titan Spinner roams the ruins of Raccoon City. But the most disturbing detail is that it isn't alone. The monster acts as a mother, guarding dozens and dozens of smaller spiders that hatched nearby, turning the encounter into a terrifying swarm battle. Resident Evil has always been known for its monsters, but what makes the creatures in Resident Evil 9 so disturbing isn't just their appearance, it's the fact that most of them were once human, patients, children, test objects, victims of experiments carried in the pursuit of power and control. And in the end, every monster in Resident Evil 9 is a reminder of the same horrifying truth. The real horror was the people who created them. If you enjoyed this deep dive into Resident Evil lore, please make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Comment which monster from Resident Evil you think is the most terrifying. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.